I abducted an alien. You read the title right. I've abducted an alien. After 8 whole years of being dicked around by the bastards, I got one. Now, I know most of these sorts of stories begin with something like, I never believed in aliens till I saw it. But that's hardly the case here. I've always known we're not alone out there. I was just never sure they were here, but man, oh man, they're here. Wise, my daddy passed on 8 years ago. It's always gonna be tough when your pa passes away, but being a ranching family, it's even worse. For most of you, your pa stops being the center of your life the minute you set off for college. Once the all-seeing, all-knowing, all-powerful, the beginning and the end, the one who commands you to brush your teeth, to go to bed, to go to school, to do this, do that, go here, say this, think that. Heck, he might as well have been the good Lord Almighty. Now he's just a man. He dies, and you're sad cause of your good memories and your sentimentality, but all you've really lost is one man who you happen to be particularly fond of. But that's not how it is for us. Our ranches go back generations, passed down from man to his kin, each expected to be born on the ranch, to live on the ranch, and to die on the ranch. We never learn to fly and leave the nest. We live eternally under our Father's wings, our ever-present mentors, guardians, teachers, and in both the literal and figurative senses, bosses. He's your daddy and your boss, and he's always there, and you have to do everything he says until the day one of you dies. He might as well be your god. So when he dies, you're not losing a man you're particularly fond of. You might as well be witnessing the death of a god. Long story short, when my daddy passed, I was distraught. I was so distraught the night after his wake that I couldn't sleep a wink. I must say the thing did earn a crumb of respect from me for that. But that hardly compared to the fear and anger I felt for all those years of being jerked around, and all of those poor cows whose lives had been so horribly ripped away from them. Okay, it finally screamed, stop. I pulled back the iron from its flesh. Now I should known the thing could. Still had a trick up its sleeve, but I was so consumed by this sense of victory, I just couldn't help myself but reach down into its pocket like a kid fishing for candy in a Halloween bowl. It got me. The twisted round its midsection and jabbed my wrist with some sort of needle or probe or high-tech device, and I felt that electricity shooting down my body all over again. I went over like a lead balloon, crashing right down on the floor of that barn. I couldn't move. It was Big Ben all over again. Thing must had a boot knife or something, cause it managed to cut itself free, and there was now no question in my mind what a horrible mistake I had made. The last thing I remember before that thing smashed the heel of its boot into my face like stomping a roach were the words, pendejo, you'll be next. When I woke up this morning, it was gone. My nose, clogged with dried blood, was twisted at a nearly right angle to my face, broken beyond all belief. But I was alive at least for now. I haven't been able to shake off the feeling that this story isn't over. It said as much itself. You'll be next. I hope y'all can give me some advice right now, cause I'm scared out of my mind. I can see the sun creeping down in the sky, and I know what that means. Usually us ranchers sleep like rocks, our muscles aching from a long day's work, so exhausted that a nuclear explosion could go off next to our beds, and we wouldn't jostle an inch. I know that's when they come, and now I will no longer face the night worrying I might be the next poor soul on the hill, but knowing as much. If I can defend myself, I need to know how. If not, I might never live to see tomorrow. Damn those little green men, damn them to hell. Now, I figure they must known that, and that's why they're always coming at night when they think we'll be dead asleep. But that night, I was wide awake. I knew something was wrong when the flies stopped buzzing. Wise on a cattle ranch, you'll find flies everywhere on account of them, smelling all the cows and their dung. There can be so many flies you'd swear the buggers could swarm and suck your blood dry like a juice box, if they so desired. That's why it was such a shock when the hum of thousands of little wings went cold at the snap of a finger. I just knew something was wrong, so I reached my hand back over my shoulder at the light switch above my headboard, and nothing. Rather than finding the familiar feeling of the splintering wood of the wall, my hand just slipped back further and further into, well, nothing. My bed should be pressed right up against that wall, but there I was reaching back. My arms stretched out all the way like a kid, raising their hand way up in class, and my fingers just couldn't find it. I was just about to roll over and look back when I finally felt something, but I could tell right away that it was no wall. I had no question what it was even if I didn't know whose it was. A cold, clammy hand. As its icy fingers grasped my wrist, it felt like I'd just grabbed a hold of a bolt of thunder. Sparks of electric pain racing through my body. I could no longer move or even feel my body. I could only watch as I was dragged by some invisible force from my bed and out the house, down the pasture and into the woods. If I could screamed, I would screamed. I've got no shame in admitting that. However, all I could do was silently watch the sky as I was dragged off, watching as dazzling orbs of light flew overhead. Then, I swear to you on the grave of my daddy. It was morning, and I was laid flat out in the back of neighbor Earl's flatbed. Boy, did my head kill. I felt like I drank 2 six-packs by my lonesome and was suffering the consequences. It took me 10 minutes just to gather myself enough to sit up and 20 more to stand. 30 more, and I was finally right enough to walk. Of course, Earl was my neighbor, so I knew full well how to get home from his property. But even if I didn't, I'd still be able to find my way home because, I kid you not, I could see the trail from where they drugged me all the way out here, winding like the tracks of a ginormous snake all the way back. I knew then and there this couldn't be any sort of dream. This was real. When I pushed through the brush and stepped foot on my property, once again, I was struck by a hulking figure in the distance. A dark shape perched atop a sloping green hill in the field, like a puddle of ink, spilled on an otherwise pristine paint. Only a few steps closer, and I could already make out what it was. One of our studs, a huge bull by the name of Big Ben. Daddy named him Big Ben on account of him buying the bull from an Englishman, and because Ben was very well endowed in a manner of speaking. I could see as I got closer that Ben wasn't moving. He was just standing on top of that hill with his head craned up like he was staring up at the stars. I can still vividly recall the silhouette of his horns against the fiery orange sky. When I finally got up to him, I realized Ben wasn't just still, he wasn't moving. At all, not even a twitch. He was so still that if I hadn't known Ben for years, I would assumed he was just some very realistic statue of a stargazing bull. I already knew something was very wrong, but only when I reached out my hand to try and check on the brute did I realize just how wrong things were. I went to pat his side, and I swear this to you on my life, my hand slipped right into his chest like it was made of jello. All I could feel up to my elbow was an awful gooey warmth, almost like the feeling of sticking your hand in a hot bath to test the temperature. Mind you, our ranch deals in breeding and butchering, so I can say with authority from experience that this was not how the inside of a cow should feel. There's supposed to be stuff in there under the hide, muscle and bones, guts and blood. But all of that was gone from Ben. It was like I'd shoved my arm through an old, mushy, rotten watermelon. I was scared out of my mind and yanked my arm back, which thankfully slid out real easy-like. Albeit, not without making a horrible wet popping noise like yanking free the block from a clogged sink. From there, as I stumbled back, it was like the dam broke, and all of that awful sinewy goop inside of Ben came spilling out like a crimson waterfall all over my dungarees. Ben was just the first. Over the past 8 years, Stella, Charlotte, and 2 unnamed calves went just the same. Top of the hill, frozen still, staring up at the heavens above. Just sacks of bloody mush by then, like cow-shaped water balloons that would explode at the slightest prick. There was no other possible explanation. We are not alone on this planet. They, the extraterrestrials, are here, abducting my cows, testing them, torturing them, and when they're through, they'd kill them in the most horrible of ways, leaving them as nothing but globs of congealed flesh in a leather sack. Needless to say, I was scared out of my wits. I had no way of knowing I wouldn't be taken next, that I wouldn't end up as a shell of my former self, a skin bag of gelatinous viscera on that hill. I couldn't be sure it would have much of an effect on them, but for my own peace of mind, I slept with my pistol on my hip, right under the blanket, every single night after they took Charlotte. Of course, even that didn't do me much good when every cow since Ben had been taken, while I was dead asleep. I'd just wake up to find another poor, bovine stargazer on that hill, and every night I had to wrestle with the terrifying possibility that I might be next, that the next time I opened my eyes might be my last, in the mothership, on the table. Some nights the thought alone was enough to keep me up for hours on end with nothing, but that scene playing over and over in my mind. Last night was no exception. I was laying on my back, trying my very hardest to stave off visions of being subjected to the most horrible sorts of torture imaginable, just so I could get even a wink of sleep. when, after a few breaths to steady my shaken nerves, it struck me. The flies were quiet, they were here, I wasn't waiting. I slithered my hand all sneaky-like down to my side, took hold of the pistol grip, and reared back, raising the weapon in the air as I fired blindly behind my head, bullet after bullet after bullet. A scream. That's what I heard. Between the clamor of gunshots, I heard a horrible scream. Only when the bullets stopped coming did I jump out of bed and whip around to see a small, writhing figure curled up in the back of a little cubby behind my bed, where the wall should been. I swear to you that as I walked up to it, trying to catch my breath in all the excitement, I saw its true form in the dim of that crevice, and I'm telling you it's just like they say. What with the huge head, the bulging eyes, the works. That thing was a being from beyond the stars. Unfortunately, as fast as I was on the draw with my pistol, I wasn't fast enough to turn on the lights, and by the time I finally flipped them on, it had managed to disguise itself. In the corner of the cubby, where I had just seen that awful beast sat what merely appeared to be a young human man, maybe a Hispanic. He was dressed in all black with brown hair buzzed down and had his hands wrapped around his leg where one of my bullets must connected. Thing even managed to squeeze out a somewhere in there. I'll give it to them, if I wasn't wise to their games, by now I would said it was a pretty convincing get-up. I mean, the thing even knew some Spanish. But its disguise wasn't perfect. Anyone with a keen enough eye could see that. Its skin was far too smooth, no wrinkles, blemishes, cuts, scrapes, nothing. Its eyes were also far too blue, bluer than anyone's got a right to be. Most telling of all was that, if you looked real close, you could see it had a sixth finger on its left hand right next to the pinky. No way that was gonna fool me. I grabbed it by the wrist and dragged it out to the barn as it screamed and shouted all sorts of nasty words to me in Spanish. I suppose the thing still thought I could be deceived into taking it for a Spaniard or a Mexican, but that wasn't gonna happen, no way. I just said to it, "Now, you're not gonna fool me. I know you're not that sort of alien." I've got to tell you, I was almost hooting and hollering when I hid in the barn. I had just abducted an alien. Of course, now I had to think of what I was gonna do next. Now, I knew that this thing I had in my barn might be the most important discovery in the entirety of scientific history, and much as I'd like to have put it down right then, and there in the name of Big Ben, Charlotte, Stella, and those poor babies, that was something I simply couldn't do in the interest of our species. Course, in a perfect world, I'd have had a genuine scientist on speed dial so I could call them up and say, "Listen, pack up your microscope and those test tubes and get your ass down here. You won't believe what I've gotten my hands on." But I don't imagine most people have some in their contacts. No, this would have to be a very public affair, and that was gonna be a problem. I mean, I knew what it was, but who's to say y'all would? If I went out shouting that I'd caught myself a little green man from beyond the stars, it'd be me. Those scientists would lock up and study as some deranged lunatic. No, I had to prove to those less knowledgeable I had here an extraterrestrial beyond any shadow of a doubt. Course, that's easier said than done. I had no clue how to do that, whether there was some part of this thing I could point to and say, "Look here. Proof undeniable." Then again, I was thinking, maybe I can find that out, and it hit me, I've got to run some tests. I mean, how obvious is that? Testing always comes after abduction. Only difference is this time, it wasn't some poor sap on the slab the tables had turned. Now, if you've ever seen The X-Files, you know the aliens on that program bleed green stuff. Don't get this all the wrong way. I'm not saying I believe everything I see on TV as the God's honest truth. But supposing they were onto something, maybe the proof I needed would be flowing through its veins. Supposing it had veins. I was just about to go for my skinning knife when I remembered I'd already shot the damn thing. I just grabbed its leg, tore away the fabric from the bullet hole, and pressed my two thumbs together around it and squeezed like I was trying to pop a zit. I figure these things must feel pain either that, or they're even better at pretending than I initially supposed. 'Cause at first, the thing was trying real hard to mad dog me, but when I squeezed even harder, it really started howling. Then the blood came, squirting up out of that fleshy crater like lava from Mount. Red. I was shit out of luck. There went the best idea I'd got. Seems this thing could mimic a man inside and out. I needed a new plan, and the harder I thought about it, the more sure I was that there was only one possible solution to this little dilemma. I needed to force that thing to stop pretending and give up its fiendish charade. I asked. The stopped, spat on the ground, and just said, "Bitch. Bit. They're gonna get you." Seemed the bugger could speak my language. I don't think so. See, it's me who's got you, hombre, I told it. Now, I know what you are, and you know what you are, so how's about we stop pretending and you switch off your cloaking device? I don't got no cloaking device, Psycho Puta. Seemed the thing was gonna make me work for it, but I was more than happy to. I had just the thing to make it talk, supposing I was right, and it really did feel pain. I didn't even have the slightest bit of hesitation to use it given this thing wasn't even worthy of the most basic human decency, seeing as it was no human. Even if you're not a rancher, I'm sure you know what a brand is. It's a big hunk of metal on a stick in the shape of your ranch's emblem. You use a torch, heat it up till it's glowing red hot, and for only a moment, press it right into the flesh of the cow's hide, so it sears that emblem right into the skin so everyone knows they're yours. Of course, these days you can also brand cows with freezing chemicals or electric devices, but my family's old-fashioned, and we do things the old-fashioned way. Iron and fire. Now, I said to it as I grabbed the brand from off the wall, you might not have these here doohickeys on your planet, so let me just tell you what's gonna happen. I'm gonna get this hunk of metal red hot and shove it right into that fleshy belly of yours. Don't think I won't. Now, I don't wanna have to do this, and you certainly wouldn't want me to do this, so how's about you give up the act and show me your true form? The thing wasn't gonna give in that easy. It just spat at me again and shouted, "Schizoputa." Suit yourself, I shrugged as I grabbed the torch and got to heating the tip of the brand. I must admit, cruel as it may be, I couldn't help but get some sort of satisfaction from this ordeal, after all those aliens had put me through with my poor cows. I got that brand red hot, pulled up its shirt, and jabbed the burning metal right into its side. Boy, did it scream. Now, you're not supposed to do this, cause it'll ruin the brand. But seeing as branding this beast wasn't my intention, I had no issue twisting the scalding iron against its belly, twisting up scraps of burnt and flesh like twisting a white-hot corkscrew into a bar of syrup. "Turn it off," I commanded. "Show me your real face." But the damned thing wouldn't give in. It just went on screaming and shrieking, and I can't say I blame the thing, but I also can't say I felt bad for it neither. I'll give it to them, though. Those things must have cajones of steel to go through all that and still refuse to shut off their disguise.